Hey, I'm Robert Pearson. This is Follow the Leader. I think I'm going to start doing some in-depth book reviews, which is why I've titled. I came across a book this morning by Robert Lowry. I'm not going to read it while I'm driving. Revelations, Rhapsodies. It's mirrored on my phone. I don't know how. I looked backwards and I looked at it in the phone. Anyway, Revelations, Rhapsody. I highly recommend the book. The problem is it's out of print, so a copy is going to cost you like $150. It's life sometimes. It's an excellent book on Revelation because it's a take I don't think I've heard anywhere else like it all. And so just today I'm going to do kind of a basic overview of the book, and then successive days I'll do a chapter by chapter, an overview of each chapter as we go. But so it's a really niche book. My little Bible college of 500, he wasn't one of the professors, but I guess he knew and was good friends with the professors. I think he taught at another tiny Bible college. But Robert Lowry, Mr. Lowry was, I did get to go to a evening seminar. He did like a 4-hour seminar one Saturday or Friday night for our New Testament prophecy class, which was awesome. This is my turn. Is this it? No, I'm actually past my turn. Well, I'll have to do a U-turn then. Anyway, so for my New Testament prophecy class, we got to go listen to the guy who actually wrote our textbook talk, which is awesome. And not an opportunity you get at like the big fancy places with the big fancy textbooks. So there's that. Yeah, I didn't realize. Anyway. Yeah. But he did a great job of laying out his premise and how it all came together and his view on things. There's a picture of the dude there. He is no longer with us currently. He passed away, I don't know, 5 to 7 years ago, I think. There we go. The rest of the park might be a bigger light. He unfortunately never got to actually finish his commentary. He was working on a commentary on Revelation using his unique view, and then never really got to finish it. But so the premise is that Revelation is a rhapsody, which is a musical term that refers to the very end of a long piece of classical music. And throughout long pieces of classical music, you will hear melodies that are different. And the fundamental melody of a different section will change as you go through the song. And the rhapsody at the very end is a portion of music that ties in all of the other different melodies as you go through. So the rhapsody will have different sections, and each section will have a melody and a tie-in to each of the different sections. It's a kind of a great climax at the end of a large piece of music. And Revelation is a fun trivia fact. Revelation has more Old Testament references than any other book in the New Testament. Which is interesting, because you don't hear a lot of people digging around in the Old Testament unless they're just furiously hunting through Daniel, trying to make stuff match and then look at the tabloids and then figure out, like a little orphan Annie decoder ring, when Jesus is coming back. And that's not how you use any of the Bible. If you're doing that, you're doing it wrong. Not that chunks of Daniel don't line up with Revelation. There's a lot to it. But anyway, the point is that he views Revelation as a rhapsody for scripture and scriptural prophecy, because you see references to other places in the New Testament, as well as references to the Old Testament And they're all kind of this great climax to God's great piece of literature, as they all sort of tie together in the book of Revelation. And his view of Revelation it's interesting because it doesn't exactly preclude some of the other views. So the typical views of Revelation are that it's history, and each section of Revelation is a different age or era, and we're currently in the last one. That was really popular in, I forget where it was, the 1500s or so. I missed a turn. Oh, well. Turn right on this, and that'll get me there. So the, oh no, next one. Sorry, I'm trying to not get lost while talking, and it's, there we go, this is me. So, as we, that's the historical one. There's a preterist one that says it's all been fulfilled already, and Jesus isn't coming back in the flesh. That's like full preterist. Never go full preterist. But that it's all been fulfilled already, but it's good lessons for life. The same way you'd read Isaiah, probably, is the way they look at it. Not that it is meaningless, but it's meaningful in the way that Isaiah would be meaningful now, even though it's all fulfilled already. Then you have the other one where this is all mystical, spiritual allegory, and they allegorize it to the point of it's meaningless again, and is only, good, warm, fuzzy pictures. And this is a much more balanced view, I think. There's a couple other ways to read the Revelation. I'm always frustrated because I hear the literalist interpretation and then they immediately talk about, well, this beast represents Russia, and I'm like, no, that doesn't count. You don't get to call that literalist. That's an allegory. What's a literalist is that there will literally be a giant monster with 5 heads that comes up out of the ocean. Where's that guy's Bible commentary? You're the only person who gets to call yourself a literalist, is if you believe it's not Apache helicopters. There are actually giant locusts with human faces that are going to fly through the sky and bite people. That's the only acceptable interpretation if you're going to call yourself a literalist. I'm sorry, that's just facts. These are facts. So, getting around to it, Dr. Lowry's presentation is one that you have 7 churches right out the gate, and then you wind up with 7 lampstands and 7 seals and 7 goblets of judgment, 7 trumpets. He looks at those 7 sets and overlaps them and says the first trumpet, the first church, the first seal, the first goblet, and he draws out and accentuates commonalities between them and says more than a single linear prophecy, these are 7 iterations in a single prophecy chunk. And so then you go back to the beginning of the events, and now you see the 7 seals opened up. And now you go back to the beginning of the events, and you see the 7 goblets poured out, and the 7 lampstands, and the 7, pardon me. You see all these different groups of 7. Instead, it's these building, the way a musical piece will have crescendo, decrescendo, crescendo, decrescendo, and it builds in waves. And each wave is bigger, and the last wave is the biggest to, sort of end the musical piece on a big, triumphant hurrah. Make sure I'm not getting lost. So that's the way that he looks at Revelation. Then is they're talking about some of the same events, and because instead of a single fulfillment of Revelation, or instead of a mystical spiritual fulfillment of Revelation, both of which leave it kind of meaningless, but any attempt to make Revelation fit history exactly, you'll have about 50% fit perfectly, verbatim, perfectly, like puzzle pieces. And then there'll be like 50 to 20% that makes zero sense at all. And when you're reading that guy's commentary, you'll have a bunch of stuff where you feel like, that's a stretch, buddy. I see where you're going, but that's a stretch. And then he says something else, and you're like, well, it has to be, but the other things don't fit. And Mr. Lowry's perspective on that, and why he believes it's repeating scenarios, is that's why it doesn't ever fit one period of history perfectly, but at the same time it fits all periods of history almost perfectly. Reading the book of Revelation, there were people, our parents that were like adults living through World War II. They were all convinced, like they were selling their homes to send money places, because they were like, well, Hitler's obviously the Antichrist. We're done. This is it. We're we're in the home stretch here. And all the stuff they were looking at, next thing you know, Israel's becoming a country. They're like, this fits. All of it's here. But then it's not yet. And you see this throughout history. It's repeating. Dismissing an alarm, sorry. Repeating over and over again. You have history's constantly almost fulfills Revelation, and then, not yet. Well, almost. Yeah, you're still missing a few things. And so he views history as this repeating series of events that'll fit and map this framework, is the way God handles nations and God handles mankind in general. And it's going to build and then have this drop off and decrescendo every single time. And you can see it do that through the book of Revelation in the different sets of 7, as well as through history when you map different stuff. There were people who, in Munster, Germany, they were convinced that was, they were the armies of God defeating the armies of the Antichrist, and the end was near. It was for them after a fashion. It didn't turn out well. I forget if they were Waldensians or Mennonites off the top of my head, but they didn't have a good run at it. I think they were. Oh yeah, no, they were Mennonites. It didn't turn out well. But all the events leading up to that, from their limited frame of reference, it fit. It fit everything that they read. So it's fascinating. It's fascinating. I've never seen a similar take to Revelation than Dr. Lowry's. Once again, it's a $150 book if you can find it. If you go on YouTube, there's if you search YouTube, Revelation's Rhapsody, Dr. Lowry, Robert Lowry, something like that, you will find somebody's got videos up of a presentation he did. It wasn't the one that I got to attend, it was a different one. But he's got a full presentation on his book, Revelation's Rhapsody, where it's the man himself sort of presenting his viewpoint. And for those that know and or care, he is I forget, was he an a cappella brother or not? He's a Church of Christ. I can't remember if he was instrumental or non-instrumental. But some of those fundamental tenets then are he's a cessationist, baptism is essential, and almost always the Bible is very literal, historical, grammatical method of looking at stuff. That was my turn, man. I keep missing my turns here. So that's all I got to say about that. And as we go forward, I'm going to skim. I'm going to try to do more than skim. We'll reread a chapter a day, and just talk about the stuff that was in the chapter and what was going on, and report it to you kind folks here. So that's it. Please don't take my word for it. Always do your own research, and I will see you next time. Bye.